Hey guys, JM here with another edition of Pages from Sages. And this episode, we're going to look at a section from Inazo Nitobe's classic book, The Way of the Samurai. This is sometimes you might find it published as Bushido, The Way of the Samurai, but basically the book is an introduction to for Western readers, Western audiences, to the mindset, the worldview of Japan, and how the concept of Bushido, the way of the samurai, permeates Japanese culture. It was written, I believe, after World War II, and sort of trying to bridge the divide between East and West, and be an insight into the mind, why Japanese culture is the way it is. And there are chapters that cover all sorts of topics, everything from humility and bravery and benevolence. And there's a passage, though, this passage in particular I want to read and note comes from the chapter on politeness. And if you've ever been to Japan, immediately you recognize the politeness. I mean, any culture where greeting someone is done by bowing, handing someone something is always done with two hands rather than one. This is the kind of thing that a culture that's steeped in the concept of politeness will exemplify. You'll see that and you'll notice that. Kind of like when people notice Southern hospitality, down here in the Carolinas, in Georgia, where I grew up, we hold the door for people. We smile at strangers. We say, "Hey, how you doing?" It's how we're raised. But in his section on politeness, Nitobe makes a really interesting point, and that's what I want us to think about today. He says, politeness is a poor virtue if it is actuated only by fear of offending good taste, whereas it should be the outward manifestation of a sympathetic regard for the feelings of others. I love that idea because politeness can oftentimes be a mask for feelings of resentment, deeper feelings. We can use politeness to cover up how we really feel. We can be polite, but not because we actually care about the person, but because it's just the right thing to do, or it reflects good on us, or it's just how we do things. These can all be motives for being polite that aren't really that pure, that aren't really the highest motive, the most noble. Rather, though, when we exhibit politeness because of the desire, the caring, the sympathetic regard for the feelings of others, that's when it's achieved its most pure form. When you're polite, not because it's the right thing to do, but because you genuinely care about the person that you're being polite to. It's a fascinating thought, that something most of us don't stop to think about. Of course, being polite is better than being rude almost every time, probably every time. But when we're thinking about it, when we're going deeper, when we're analyzing how we interact with people, it's a penetrating question to ask. What is my inner motive? That's something that if you read through the Gospels, you read Jesus's Sermon on the Mount or his teachings on various occasions, he always cut to the heart of it, not the external. Okay, this is how you behave, this is what you do, but even more than that. Okay, yeah, you didn't commit adultery, but did you want to with somebody's wife? You didn't murder somebody, but do you hate them in your heart? Jesus had a way of pushing past the external, the surface level of behavior, the letter of the law, and actually going deeper to the spirit of the law. And that's what Nitobe talks about in this section on politeness, is that the spirit in Bushido, in the concept of just the warrior ethic, there was an emphasis on not just doing what's right to save face, although that was a huge part of it, as it is in any honor and shame culture, but there was an emphasis on the inner motive. Why are you doing this? Is it just to save face, or is there a sincere, sympathetic regard for the feelings of others? And that's something for us to think about. It's a challenge, at least for me, to think about as well in my own interactions with people, and hopefully you as well. It's the difference between a facade and genuine character transformation, a heartfelt sympathy, a desire to basically, it's the golden rule. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what it is. It's the golden rule. Treat someone how you would want to be treated. because it's the right thing to do, yes, but because you genuinely care about them. It's hard to do sometimes. There's some people that they're really hard to care about, and that's a challenge that we have. Uh, but it's a good thing to think about, and so that's why I wanted to use this quick Pages from Sages episode to bring about some discussion on is this notion of being, are we being polite just because it's the outwardly the good thing to do, or are we being polite because we actually care about the other person and what they are experiencing in their interaction with us? So let that challenge you. It definitely challenges me, and it's the book is fantastic. I'm probably gonna do a couple episodes where we look at passages from this because it's got some pretty key insights. And Disciple Dojo is based around the metaphor of the samurai as a description of the Christian life, and so there's a lot to glean from looking at concepts of Bushido and the samurai and their worldview, that we can then see how that is a pale shadow or an echo of what the true ethic is, which is the ethic that Jesus, God incarnate, came to reveal to us. That all the cultures throughout the world have a sprinkling of it, have a fingerprint of the divine, so to speak. You know, like when Paul was in Athens and he went to Mars Hill and he saw the shrines and he says, you know, I see you guys are really religious. What you have a tiny grasp of, let me actually give you the fuller picture. And then he went on to talk about the message of Jesus and how he fulfills all of the things that people had longed for or had grasped, had reached for. So that's what we try to do. That's what we want to do when we engage the culture, any culture, is we want to not look at it as, okay, you know, they're wrong, I'm right, let me just start going in and preaching. But actually saying, okay, what can I learn? How does an entirely different worldview, in this case the worldview of Bushido, of the samurai, how does it in some way reflect the Creator God, the true ethic, the one who desired for all people everywhere to have knowledge of Him and to reflect Him in their lives? So we'll come back to this in future episodes, but that's what I wanted to leave us with now. Think about it. Are you polite just because it's the right thing to do? Or are you polite because you actually care of what the other person experiences when they interact with you? That's it. Good stuff to ponder. So take care. If you like these videos, you want to see more, please subscribe. Click the link here. I'm not a YouTuber, again. I don't know how to do any of that. But subscribe to the channel. Check out our podcast on SoundCloud, Stitcher, or iTunes. Just search Disciple Dojo. We're the only one. And we'll see you next time.